I thought about this topic, I began to think about how women try to adjust after giving birth. I'm not a woman, but I can only imagine that
Right.
change in lifestyle, that change in their routine, right? Before it was just you and probably your husband, or you and an older child
Mm-hmm.
before, but then there is a new, I mean, and you would agree with me that even if you have given birth to five children, each time you go to the labor room is a different experience entirely.
It's a
So
different
this evening,
experience.
yes, yes. No, so I want you to help us. How can a woman adjust to the workplace experience postnatal postnatal period? Um, please, you have the floor. Just kill it.
Right. Oh, okay. So when we talk about postnatal adjustment is a peculiar and largely topic. But of course, I
Mm,
would want to at least, give the background information as to certain key concepts. So key
okay.
concepts like the difference between postnatal and postpartum. Sometimes we hear the word
Mm,
postpartum depression, and then we interchange that word with postnatal. Um,
okay.
Honestly speaking, not a lot of people understand. So the most common is when we talk about maternity leave, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in relation to the workplace, we say, oh, she's just had a baby, and she needs to be given time to rest. I particularly, just want to look at those key concepts. So I want us to
Yes.
know first of all that having a baby is a normal life crisis. It's a normal
Mm,
life crisis. So whatever, and it's a very delicate time in any woman's life, either before childbirth, during pregnancy, or even before pregnancy. We're dealing with different things per time in our lives. As we move, generally in the course of life. So I would want to at least give the background uh, uh, um, information as regards post. So let me just keep using post delivery, because we're not talking to a mental health experts here. We're talking to the regular
yeah.
you and I person, on the road. So let's implement
Exactly.
usable information. So let me continue to use the word uh, uh, um, post delivery. So when we talk post delivery, we're talking we're talking normal and abnormal. But first of all, let's talk about normal. It is normal after childbirth to feel overwhelmed. It's normal after
Mm,
childbirth so we sometimes think that it is normal to say that, oh, you just had a baby, you should be excited, you should be happy, you should be happy that you gave birth, you should be happy that you have a baby. No, please, that's a myth. It's totally a myth.
mm,
Not every person, not I mean 80-90% of women, if not more, do not feel that way. So we have the different phases that comes to play after a woman has had a baby. So we're talking postnatal distress or post-delivery distress. We're talking normal anxiety. We're talking normal maladjustment, because there is
mm,
also the challenge of having adjustment disorder right after delivery. There is the tendency of having postnatal depression. There is the tendency of having postnatal anxiety. There is the tendency of having postnatal psychosis. So you see, all of these things come to play. But what is normal? What is normal is that you will not always feel the excitement. Yay, I just had a baby. Because these things come in phases. Do I begin to
mm,
talk about the physical changes you're experiencing as a woman, which I will still talk about, or we start talking about the psychological changes that you're genuinely experiencing? So we also have the baby blues, which sets in for a large majority of women. But naturally, the baby blues, usually would resolve on its own. And it's usually between 2 to 3 weeks after delivery. And typically, many women go through the baby blues. But the baby blues, it is a normal psychological experience that is meant to resolve after delivery. Okay? So I want to give certain fun facts. And like what I said, graceful content, being happy, the happy-go-lucky breastfeeding mother, all these are myths. And you hear people saying that, oh, are you not, generally happy and all of that? And then we notice that because of the changes in sleep, the changes in appetite, and several other changes, many women perceive these changes differently. So you see some women say that, oh, pregnancy excites me, but after delivery, I'm not excited. You see some women say that, oh, pregnancy single woman who is not only a career woman, but a mother, because maybe you're planning to still get pregnant and you want to prepare for this. I want you to know that your experience is unique to you. So you could look at the other woman, and I have a friend. I have a friend who's got 4 kids, and she makes it look very easy. Honestly, you will not believe that she's battling, caring for 4 children, and she's just 40. So
Wow.
so you look at a kind of woman like that. I mean, she's looking all pink. Well, for the sake of reference, no, my fanga. For the sake of reference, she's looking all pink, she's looking all together, and she's got 4 children. She's got a career that she's trying to run. Well, she doesn't really have a high pressure job, but you have women who have high pressure jobs who are you genuinely feel they're keeping it together. You then look at these women and feel, hold on, is this not a woman like me? Why is this thing looking so difficult? And then you hear people say things like, oh, you have a lot of support system. So some people will say, oh, you even have your mother coming to take care of the baby. Me, I didn't have anybody. That's not to mean you can have all the support in the world, but you still feel alone on this journey of childbirth, right? So, absolutely, Rocket Posh, you're correct. So some have it, and some, but then we would get to that in a bit as we go. But I want you to know that a very large percent of women, so we're talking 1 in 7 women, they do struggle with perinatal mood and anxiety. So it is something that, and we're talking as high as 10% of, in every pregnant woman actually breaking down either during pregnancy or after pregnancy, because a lot of things are going on at the same time. All right, so because we do not have the luxury of time to go into all of this changes, especially during pregnancy, our focus is on postnatal adjustment
Priscila,
after delivery.
it's like I'm going to bring you back, right? Because it appears that we cannot cover this topic in just one sitting. So we most likely would revisit this topic again. But whatever you can give us today, please pour it on us.
Right. Okay. That's fine. But let me say this, that it's very important that either yourself, as a new mom, or someone who is taking care of a new mom, it's very important that you at least take this with you today, that no experiences are the same. No support is ever enough. There are times this woman always would feel that at some point after delivery that she is alone on this journey. And she feels what we call a loneliness, that feeling of the fact that, yeah, but they're not me. They didn't push. They didn't get the way, they don't understand the way I felt. They were not the ones who were not unable to sleep in the last trimester of pregnancy. So there is that feeling of the fact that, oh, I'm just alone in this. There's usually that phase. So what is important is just being there and asking the right questions. But you can never go wrong with trying to understand how uniquely this woman feels on her journey. So right after delivery, because I would rather concentrate, mental health is my thing. I don't want to go into the physiological aspect, but I'll just brief on it a bit. But because I'm talking psychological health, I want to say that the first phase after the woman just pushes out, the first phase psychologically that she goes through is the take-in phase. The take-in is when, the baby is out, the placenta is out, and you're beginning to take in the moment of the fact that some heavy pounds just got out of you. So you're finding you in all of that. Because guess what? Everybody is cooing and excited, not about you, but about the new baby.
True.
But about the new baby. It's always about the new baby. You are about the new baby. But you see, right after that push, you are suddenly asking yourself, okay, where am I in all of this? So there is that taking phase where you're genuinely asking yourself. So honestly, this takes between 1 to 2 days. And the approximations that I'm giving today, it's just plainly based on research, plainly based on the average experience. But that's not to mean that that's the way it will happen for everybody. And that's why I said my first take is that every experience is unique to every woman. Because what's the dynamics of her marriage, the dynamics of her pregnancy? If I get pregnant now, for example, the dynamics will be different for me because I've gone through a waiting phase. So it is very, very unique for every woman. So the journey of her pregnancy, the dynamics of her in-laws, the dynamics of how it is for her career-wise, if there is money, if there is no money, what she had to go through while she was pregnant, maybe financially with her spouse, maybe she was dealing with a cheating spouse while pregnant, maybe she was dealing with absence of intimacy, maybe she was dealing with low libido, maybe she could have been dealing with so many things. In fact, she could have been dealing with a sick child, right, during the phase of pregnancy. So she could, of course, be dealing with her health. So that first phase, that taking phase, is where she gets to breathe at least. That, okay, you know what? This phase of pregnancy is over. And, I can, where am I, in all of this? So it's a time for her to reflect. So she's reflecting. She is sometimes not even paying too much attention to that child or to that baby. Because she's saying to herself, she's going to be taken care of. Well, based on the kind of support system that she does have. So the woman is kind of passive. So when I talk about passivity, or passivity, please, I can't even remember what that word is. So when I'm talking about the woman being passive, I'm saying that she is not very active when it comes to, hands-on care for her child or for herself. She's just taking it in. So the woman becomes dependent on her healthcare provider or her non-structured support, because there are two types of support system. We have the formal support system and the informal support system. The formal support system are people like me, for example, or the counselors, or those who would provide that psychological support, or so generally the experts are the formal kind of support, like what you're doing. Then we have the informal, which are family members, those who you don't have to pay to get support from them. You have friends, you have neighbors, you have sometimes children can be your support system. These are all informal support. So this woman in this first phase is huge on being dependent on all of the care providers that she has around her, either the formal or the formal. And honestly, she just feels that they're going to take care of this newborn, and she's experiencing extreme tiredness. And like I said, this could take between 1 to 2 days or 2 to 3 days. It depends on, her physiology and what's going on, and then, she wants to, all she wants to talk about at that time is the process of her delivery and the process of her pregnancy. And I want you to check this out. If you visit any woman who's just had a baby, all she wants to talk about is, oh, then I was at a party, and then I did, and then my water broke, and then, that's all she's interested in. So we call this personal debriefing. She wants to debrief, right? She wants to debrief. when someone goes through a traumatic event, we talk about debriefing, right? So
Yeah.
that's part of post-trauma care. We talk about
Yeah.
debriefing. She wants to debrief herself. She wants to continue to talk about the agonizing period so that she gets everything out of her subconscious. She pours out all of the pain. And honestly speaking, this is one mistake that a lot of people make when they go to visit a new mom. They talk about their own delivery as well. Come on, people. That's not the time to talk about when you were also in labor. Just listen to her. Listen to her story. She is the star of the moment. She's the one who should be listened to, right? The attention is already taken away from her by, people not even paying attention to her, but attention to the baby and looking at the features of the baby to be sure the baby is fine and all of that. That is enough stress. Don't add to her stress by talking about the time that you were in labor or the time that, you were pregnant and all. So she wants to talk about she wants to talk about that period. Please allow her to pour out. Allow her to, just let it all out. Allow her to share. Allow her to tell you when she first discovered she was pregnant. In fact, she could begin to join different stories that you don't find relevant, but it is relevant for our own psychological healing post-delivery. So it's very important that you pay attention to her and encourage her, in fact, to talk about this experience. Because again, some women will not want to talk about it. They feel that it is highly personal, they think it's highly private. And you see why I said no experience is the same. So just ask her cue in questions like, what about all of this do you find most exciting? What about all of this do you find most profound? Are there any, are there any joys? Are there any downtimes? So you just want to ask those questions that naturally would not look like you're invading into her privacy, like telling you what then happened, how her husband did not cooperate, or how her husband was fidgety, or no, that might be probing questions to her and intrusive questions to her. So you have to be able to find that balance between what she finds comfortable to share and what she doesn't find comfortable to share. But it will be of great help if you can, just have that conversation with her about, her sharing. So that's the taking in phase. Then she moves from this taking in phase to the taking hold phase. So in the taking hold phase, she is beginning to initiate care for her child. So you see, for some women in this taking in phase, you're the one probing you're the one, giving the cues to say, oh, would you want to breastfeed? Oh, I think her diapers needs to be changed. She might not even listen to you. But in the taking hold phase, she then independently wants to initiate the care for her child, right? Because she's taking in all of the, she's moved. It's just like stages of grieving, the 5 stages of grieving. So in the taking hold phase, she begins to initiate actions on her own to take decisions about caring for her child without relying on others. But usually we say that women who have undergone anesthesia naturally would get into this phase in a matter of hours, right? So if it's surgery, and then again, that's another dynamic with delivery. So you don't know if going under surgery you don't know if it's an emergency surgery, you don't know if it was a planned surgery. You see how all of these things are different, right? And also, because we're talking about the workplace, we're talking about a career woman or a business woman who wants to go straight to work right afterwards. You see some women take maternity leave just within days of delivery. So they've not had time to clear their desk. They didn't even know they were going to give birth at that time. We've not even talked about if she probably, is dealing with a premature delivery. All right. So she might not have had time to clear her desk. She might not have had time to hand over to the next person. So she might not have had time to do all of that. But in the taking hold phase, she then suddenly realizes that, oh my goodness, there is work to go back to. I need to quickly make sure that I make this child as independent as possible, or I do the right things, get it right, from the beginning, so that I can, quickly go back to work and all of that. So the woman naturally will just focus on the newborn actively, she's not as passive as she was in that, initial taking in phase, the woman, of course, still needs that positive reinforcement, that reassurance that, you're not alone in this. Yes, I might not, my labor, even if I've had a child before, my experience is not your experience. You're still allowing her to relive all of that, but the stories will reduce, but not as aggressive as it was, when she had that child. But you just encourage her, to just settle in and give her time, to settle in. So that's the taking hold phase. And then the last phase is the letting go phase. She then lets go. So taking hold phase, you might see that she might want to carry her baby much more than the way she wanted to actually engage the baby when she just had when she was going through the taking in phase. But in the take hold phase, she then suddenly becomes more clingy. She's paying more attention. She's then realizing that, oh my goodness, this is heavy responsibility that's falling on me. How is my life going to come back to the same routine that it's been? Then she begins to notice her body. She begins to notice the changes in her body. She begins to notice that, oh my goodness, I feel sore. And I'm going to talk about all of those physiological changes as well. So during the let go, she finally accepts her new role and lets go of the old role. So if she's a new mom, if she's never had a baby before, it is a serious wake-up call for growing up. She just has to suddenly grow up from being that childless woman who's never nurtured, to that woman who suddenly is responsible for another life. So readjustment in this phase then becomes very key. And that is when we begin to talk about normal adjustment and maladjustment or abnormal adjustment.
This has been deep.
Right. So, do you have any questions, before do you have anything you want to clarify before I just go on? Because I'm also
no, that's fine. Yes, that's fine. Because all this this is part of the conversation as well. Because at the end of the day, all this will begin to play as to how the person would behave when she resumes work, right? So carry on, please.
Okay, so when we talk about adjustment areas, like I said, we've talked about this. We're talking about psychological adjustment areas. Hey, Rennie, we've talked about psychological adjustment areas, and we're talking about the physiological adjustment areas, because which is a huge role. So I cannot but talk about the physiological. That is the physical part, because the perception of this heavily weighs on the woman's mind. Say, for example, involution, what we call involution. So it's it's when the uterus, because the uterus naturally is a pelvic organ. What do I mean by that? The uterus naturally is within the pelvic area, the pelvic bone, right? It is, when the pregnancy begins to graduate, that the uterus, that the uterus now leaves the pelvis, the pelvic area, and goes into the abdominal area. Because that's the part that can stretch and become bigger. The pelvis or the pelvic bone, it will only choke the baby as the pregnancy gets bigger, because it's made of bone, right? It cannot expand, but the abdominal area can expand. So the uterus, naturally being a pelvic organ, then goes into the abdominal area. But after delivery and after the placenta is out, the woman's body begins to adjust and then goes through her reproductive organ, which is the uterus and some other organs, begins to try to self-repair. The body begins to push them to begin to repair themselves. So the first thing that happens is involution. Involution is when that uterus then goes back into the pelvis. All right. So you see a lot of women go through the phase of trying to tie wrapper around the abdomen so that it goes back into shape. Okay, and then you hear people pass sly comments like, it's like another baby is still inside this. Come on, people, can we stop that? So you see people say, it's like all the children have not come out, though. It's like there's still another baby in here, and that sometimes could be psychological damaging for the woman. She doesn't want to hear that. She just pushed some pounds out of her body, and then you're telling her that there might still be something in there. She's still, trying to take in the fact that she has another life to care for. And then, you're suggesting things like that. So it's very important that we understand that involution is a highly psychological experience for new mothers. So please don't comment about her tummy. Please don't comment about all of the changes in her skin tone. Or, oh, okay, now your neck will start brightening up. We say things like that. We say, now this your big nose. It will not go back to shape. Come on, people. Like, those are comments that could naturally injure a woman and affect the way she views herself, affect what we call her body image. All right, so she could develop a body image disturbance. So we don't want all of that. So it's very important that at that time, in that time of evolution and all, you are just simply reassuring her. Tell her she still looks beautiful, but I'm not saying flatter her. Genuinely pay compliments. Pay genuine compliments. Tell her how she's a strong woman. Tell her how you've observed her pull through. Tell her how you've seen her, juggle between certain activities. Tell her that it's okay, all right, not to even be copying. Tell her it's okay. Tell her it's okay not to feel like breastfeeding. Tell her it's okay that, that engorgement that she's feeling in her breast. Tell her that, it's part of delivery, and let her express how she feels about this heavy, and this heavy breast and fullness, that she's going through. Talk to her and let her express. All right. So the woman is going through involution. Her perineal area, that's her, the anus, because naturally the uterus sits on the anus, and that area is usually very heavy and odematous. So it's usually heavy and filled with fluid. She's not peeing. She's afraid to pee. She's afraid to poo. Actually, probably she's had a tear. So she's dealing with, look at the way you're looking at me. So she's dealing with all of these things at the same time. All right. So you want to ask her about those areas. You want to ask her if she's finding the sit bath. We talk about the sit bath where she spits on warm water with some salt, put on it. You want to ask her if she's still experiencing the lochia. That's the blood that comes out. You want her to talk about this experience, so that she can feel that she's seen and heard. She has to feel seen. She has to feel seen. Yes, she's trying to bond with her baby, but she still has to feel seen. So you want to, that's if if she's comfortable discussing all of this with you. But if she's not comfortable, hey, step back and allow her to just go through that phase. So her cervix is going through it has to adjust back to the pre-pregnant state where it's just relaxes and all of that, because naturally after a woman takes in, the cervix, that's the entrance to the uterus, seals up so that not even a single microbe can go through it. So all of these changes are going on, so she's afraid of urinating, she's afraid of defecating. Her appetite changes drastically. She's either extremely hungry or she really does not even know what's going on with her. Husbands, that's not the time to begin to talk about sex. She does not want to hear about sex at this time. She naturally doesn't want to hear about sex. And can we stop passing jokes around sex? So when are you going to be ready? Oga has though, because some people were active, sexually active during pregnancy. Some people were not. You don't know what the dynamics of their bedroom is. So, so she's dealing with all of this. Now, I'm saying all this so that we understand the essence of maternity leave. Maternity leave is supposed to cater for the physical care that a woman is supposed to get and the psychological care that a woman is supposed to get. So HR professionals in the workplace need to, pay attention, to how this woman is adjusting with all of this, either before delivery or after delivery. Because some women have taken maternity leave way before their EDD, their expired date of delivery. So I've seen women go back to work right immediately after delivery. And she's still going through all these in her body when she resumes back to work. I've seen women who, did not prepare, for the baby coming. I've seen people who have not even done their shopping. So the dynamics are so different and unique to every woman. So depending on what it is, that she's going through. So it's very important that all of these boxes are checked. So the husband has a role, in playing. The woman herself has a role, and her informal caregivers have a role, and the formal caregivers also do have a role. So then the woman then begins to see changes in her sleep. So yes, the last trimester, graciously, God uses it to prepare her, for the incoming of a new child. Because most women in last stages of pregnancy, they are unable to lie down properly. They are unable, so they are already experiencing sleeplessness. That's why you see the first 2 days they just want to sleep and forget that anything just happened. All right, but afterwards you then see that, because the baby would wake up at night, so they have to wake up intermittently. And even for the person who does not have a baby, we say that sleep is very pertinent to your mental health. So now imagine when you're experiencing sleep deprivation because of a new baby. All right, so if you're someone who would have to hand over certain things, have to delegate certain things, you now want to begin to do that. And we'll talk about that when we get to the part of what you need to begin to do, when you have to resume work, because our focus is on the workplace. If I want to talk about the domestic dynamics, that is a long way to go. Let's just look at the workplace, right? As what she has to go through before she then begins to resume work. How is she in tune with herself and her psyche before she resumes work? What is it that she has to do? What are the things she has to put in place? What are the things that is she dealing with? Accepting herself? Is she dealing with accepting her new body size? Is she dealing with all of what's going on? Is she dealing with the drama that comes with omugo? We call it omugo in Igbo land, right? Somebody staying. So there is the debate of who stays, your mom or my mom. So all of that debate going on. And like I said in my post, when I was posting this event, I said that that's the time where family members who you've always been looking for an excuse for them not to stay in your house, that is the entry. That is the time they visit and extend their stay, and you genuinely just want them to leave. People then begin to intrude into the dynamic between yourself and your husband. If your husband naturally would do things for you, that is when his mom is beginning to notice that, oh, you send my son on errands too much. So it's quite a lot going in, going on there. So if a woman then begins to have abnormal adjustments, then she begins to experience deprivation in her sleep. She begins to experience mood swings. She begins, depending on what it is. And I say this very carefully, because when we talk about adjustment disorders, people oftentimes, and even experts, and I'm talking experienced experts, sometimes will mistake it for depression, anxiety, or conduct disorder. So when we talk adjustment, we're saying that it's very pertinent that you're asking yourself, am I adjusting properly or I'm not adjusting properly? And when it comes to adjustment, the differential is always that, were you dealing with mood swings before this new crisis or before this situation? Were you dealing with mood swings? Were you dealing with anxiety? Were you dealing with loneliness? Were you dealing with guilt? Were you dealing with worry? Were you dealing with weight loss? Were you dealing with weight gain? Were you dealing with overeating? Were you dealing with any of these things before the baby came? So, but if you were not dealing with any of these things, and this new challenges that you're beginning to experience is as a result of the baby, then we can safely say that you're dealing with maladjustment or inability to adjust. And this, of course, can affect your work. And according to the DSM-5, we have 6 subtypes of adjustment disorders. So we have adjustment disorder with depression. That naturally would come with symptoms of depression. But the differential, what differentiates it is the fact that is the word situation. What was the situation before childbirth? So if you naturally get pregnant and you're experiencing a sense of hopelessness, you find that you're not experiencing that bonding with your child. You could give this, the face of the baby blues, which I said usually would happen between 2 to 3 weeks. It's okay if you're feeling that way between 2 to 3 weeks. But if it extends after 2 to 3 weeks, then you probably want to talk to a mental health expert or a mental health professional. So, but I want you to know that if you deal with any of the adjustment challenges if you deal with any of the adjustment challenges, I want you to know it's treatable, and I want you to know that it is transient. It naturally would go away after the trigger or the stressor has been taken out, which is this new role. All right. So if you find yourself experiencing the low mood, the irritability, the hopelessness, the sense of worthlessness, excessive worry, right? So you find yourself worrying excessively and all of that. So you know that, okay, maybe this is me dealing with either the baby within 2 to 3 weeks, or if it's afterwards, then you say, okay, and depression was not existing before, you say, okay, this is me maladjusting or dealing with adjustment challenges post-delivery. There is also the adjustment challenges with anxiety. So we say adjustment disorder with anxiety. So that comes with a lot of panic. So even if the baby coughs, the woman gets up. If the baby sneezes, the woman gets up. If the baby she gets, so she has a lot of tension, in her body. So she feels really tensed up. She's nervous. She's having separation anxiety, where she doesn't even want. She naturally, the woman doesn't even want to put the baby in the cot at that time. She just wants to keep watching over the baby to be sure the baby is breathing. So she's looking at the baby again and again. Is the baby still breathing? Is the baby still okay? She's observing, all of those discoloration, all of those changes and all. So there's also adjustment disorder with conduct disorder. So where she's suddenly really, really aggressive. Her behavior is changing. She's snapping at everybody that comes her way. She's throwing things. So her behavior is changing, and you're wondering, what's really going on? Where did so much anger come from? Where did all of this irritability come from? For some women, they mix anxiety and depression all in one with dealing with adjustment. But then we're saying that, how does a woman adjust in the workplace? So because I needed to lay all of this down before we get there. So in the workplace, it's very important for you to know that your work is so whatever you are. So if you're a finance analyst, if you're a nurse, if you're a teacher, whatever it is, that is only a role in your life. Your career is a role in your life. And being a new mom is another role. Being a wife is a role. Being a sister is another role. So these are roles, but they're interdependent roles. They infuse into one another. So how do you, as a new mom, begin to adjust in the workplace? I'm expecting that you have gone through all of these phases, in a healthy way, and you are not stuck in any of these phases. I'm hoping that you've adjusted well. But if you're not adjusting well, then you talk to an expert. But these are my own personal tips for you. I would encourage that you take power naps. I encourage the power naps. Take the power naps. The power nap is, that nap you take when the baby is asleep. That nap you take even in the office. Yes. You are not working all the time. And let's not get over ourselves. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. You are not, so if your work is 9 to 5, you are not working every minute within 9 to 5. You could choose to take your power nap during your break. There is nothing wrong. There are some organizations that have the crèche. There are some that do not have the crèche. There are some women who take their children to work. There are some women who put the crèche close to work. There are some women who express and leave the breast milk at home with the caregiver. And honestly speaking, some women are experiencing a high level of anxiety by simply just checking on the caregiver again and again, because the child seemed too immature to be left by I'm too fragile to be left with an unknown person. And let me define what an unknown person is. An unknown person is anybody except you. Anybody but you is an unknown person. Because whatever happens to that child, even with your mom or even with your husband, this has broken so many marriages and relationships. You will still feel there's something within you that will tell you, or try to convince you that that thing would not have happened if you were there. So an unknown person is anybody but you. All right. So you want to take those power naps to relieve yourself of all of that tension. I want you to know that there is nothing called superwoman. You cannot be a superwoman, right? Despite the fact that, you know, you watch it in cartoons and all of that. Take your power naps. Don't try to be that perfect mother. Perfectionism does not exist. Another tip for you is that you need to observe what works for you and ritualize it. Observe what works for you and ritualize it. So if you notice that not calling every hour, you know, puts you under a lot of pressure, call every hour, but minimize it to a frame of, say, 30 seconds call or a minute call. Don't try to begin to fix things at home when you're at work. Don't try to be in charge at home when you're at work. It's very important that you separate these two roles. Separate the role of being that career person and separate the role of being a mother. Do not take the role of being a career person home. So when you are home, work ends in the office. Because, honestly speaking, work never ends. And I always say this. The reason it's called work and not play is because it never finishes.
Never finishes.
Your life can finish, but work will not finish. A job will exist long after you're gone. An organization will survive without you. Don't let anybody make you feel that without you, this organization would collapse. Because if anything happens to you, they'll move on to the next best thing. And that's why I love employers, you know, like Ronke Posh. She pays that particular attention to her staff, right? And there are so many employers like that. And I want to also give it to, you know, quite a few employers that I know who provide creche in the workplace. So it's very important that you do something for you every day. So there is this association in Nigeria that, you know, I always talk about, which I'm a member of, the Employer Assistance Program. We call it IPA Nigeria, Employer Assistance Program. We provide psychological support for organizations in the workplace. So many organizations only register the organizations for HMO. If someone to talk about HMO, you only want them to visit the hospital when they have malaria, typhoid, or any form of physical illness. But we're not providing services that would pay attention to their psychological well-being, right? So this is a global body, right? And affiliate all over the world. This organization, this association does exist. I would encourage employers of labor to engage the services of EAP. I mean, it could be in an advisory capacity, and it could be in an intervention capacity, whatever it is that you can afford. And trust me, EAP practitioners can give you your ROI. They will show you how you can get your return on investment on this. And so, like, you know, like what you're doing, you're providing a lot of information, you know, out there. You're an advocate for mental health. I'm talking about you now, Toluse. So you're an advocate for mental health. You're trying to break barriers. You're trying to break the roof. You're trying to make the voice of mental health heard where it is not being heard. So that is also a contribution. I mean, it's a huge contribution to people not even knowing the impact of these on, you know, in the workplace generally. Yeah. So I would encourage that you set that healthy boundary. If there is anybody at work who naturally will spook you, please stay away from that person and have less interaction with that person. Even if that person is your boss, find ways you can communicate without excessive engagement. All right, so you need to draw the healthy boundaries. Find something you can do for yourself per day. Something you can do for yourself, because everything you're doing is for the baby. Find something you can do for yourself per day. All right, delegate when you have to, and accept that work never ends. All right, ignore comments that trivializes how you feel. Things like now you go first born. Come on, you're ready for another twin. You know, things like that. If you see that it is affecting your feelings, please do not trivialize. You must communicate to the person who is talking to you that you are not like that. The thing we don't know how to do is to speak up and say that this is how we feel. We feel that when we communicate how we feel, then we are just simply being vulnerable. That's not it. It's very important that you clearly state what is making you feel. All right. And don't let anybody gaslight you by trivializing how you're feeling, or by making you feel that, what you're feeling is normal, or, the way people just simply trivialize, the way people genuinely are feeling, be it a co-worker, be it anybody. All right. Don't trivialize it, and limit time with people that create anxiety for you, or make you anxious, or make you feel inadequate. You definitely have to do that. Don't feel awkward about asking for help, both at home and at work. And like I said, you need to separate the two lives. Compartmentalizing is a huge tool for mental resilience. You must be able to compartmentalize, separate it. Separate also your emotion from the problem. Separate your emotion from the problem. The problem is different from how you feel about the problem. You must be able to separate these two. It's very, very empowering. This is the way you feel about work. If you feel that you need more time, what is pushing you to stay at work? Is it the desire for survival? Is it the desire to maintain a lifestyle? You must choose what is most important. You being mentally healthy, or you being able to survive and keep that high profile, whatever it is. But you must answer to your dynamics. If I know I was, so we're having a summit. We're having a summit some weeks ago, the Leadership Guardian Summit, and what's her name? The MD for Hilton. She was sharing, during our syndicate session, and she was saying that she said to herself that this maternity leave thing does not work for me. I just sleep and wake up every day without doing anything. She said that was running her crazy. That's her own dynamics, and there's so many women like that as well. So if you can't survive the sleeping at home, not doing anything, then by all means, work. If you can't survive with work, don't look at a woman like that and compare yourself with her. All right? Because what is happening to her is happening to her and not you. Identify your uniqueness, identify what works for you, and ritualize it. Let me stop there.
This is, I don't know what to say. This has been hot. It really dropped it off. Even I myself, I picked a number of things here, and just for those who probably would just like to refresh their notes, take power naps. Don't try to be a superwoman. Observe what works for you and take it gradually. Don't try to fix things at home while you're at work. Set healthy boundaries. Find something you can do for yourself per day. Separate your emotions from the problem. I think for me, whether irrespective of the topic, this last point is very, very important. Separate your emotions from the problem. A lot of times we don't see the problem because we are very emotional about it. And the reason why I brought up this topic is because I feel like a lot of women find themselves in a state where sometimes they don't even know what to do. They don't understand the changes that are occurring, that is happening in their body. They don't understand what they're experiencing, and they struggle with understanding what is happening to me, and then they get to work, and people say several things. People expect certain things of them, and they are trying to fit in. They are trying to satisfy people's expectations, and then they struggle. I know that we most likely would not have been able to deal with this subject in total, as it were, but I know that we would look for a way to really deal with this very, very well. Finally, Priscilla, what would you advise employers to do for women who are just returning from maternity leave?
Seek information, seek knowledge. What you do not know, you can't be empathetic towards. It is when you know that, you experience empathy. And permit me to use this reference for those who watch Big Brother or for those who do not. So we know that the person who, the Uti won Big Brother at some point, right? And then I saw something on Twitter yesterday about him apologizing for how he had been indiscreet when some housemate was evicted last year or something. And, he was saying that he's really sorry the way he came out with lack of empathy towards the fans of that person who was disqualified. And he was apologizing for feeling that way. Now, why did he feel that way? He felt that way because I suspect that, or I think that the person he's supporting this year was probably disqualified or something,
Yes,
you
I
know,
think so.
and he felt the rage that those people felt when their
Yeah.
favorite, you know, was disqualified, and he came out to empathize and to apologize. That's what I'm talking about. You cannot be empathetic towards what you do not know about, right? So you have to seek knowledge. You have to seek information. The more information you have, the more you're empathetic towards these people. Yes, you've got a business to run. I run my organization as well. I have my employees, but the truth of the matter is that I have that. I try to understand where that person is coming from. The fact that you're even an expert does not mean that you would still understand what an employee is coming from, because you're thinking of your business, you're thinking of how your business will run. But always know that people would always trump physical resources. Physical resources can be replaced, but humans can never be replaced. That is the most invaluable, that is the most valuable resource that you have in your workplace. You can always hire and fire, but you might not always be able to rehire a good person. You could rehire somebody with competence, but you might not be able to find that person with that dedication and ownership mentality that that person you fired would have.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, and that's why companies lose um, lots of money. I mean, in 2019 or 2018, the World Economic Forum put it at billions of dollars that organizations lose due to mental health crisis. But if you can just pay attention to it in time, then you will know that you can save your organization from losing a lot of things. And I'll just use the opportunity to say, in commemoration of the World Suicide Prevention Day, that as a woman, right, it's okay for you to ask for help. When you find yourself at that phase of your life that you don't understand where you are anymore, don't just assume that it's normal. Seek help, all right, and see how you can get things done better. Thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Priscilla. I'm really honored, and I think you have really done justice to this. I hope that when we call again, you will join, you will come, you answer us. Thank everyone who
Thank you
has
for
joined
having
us.
me. Thank you for all those who've
Thank
joined. I
you.
can see my people here. Let me just do
Yeah,
that
a lot
shout
of
out
them.
quickly. Select Life Global, I see you. Mr. Dulada, I see you. Sammy, I see you. My darling friend in Maryland, I see you. I see all of my people here. Thank you all for joining, and I hope that you did enjoy this session.
So come your way again next week. This happens every week, and this is an all-female guest that we are bringing your way. So see you again next week. My name remains Toluse Francis. Bye for now.